talking about here on my channel right now. It's all about Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively's.
In an age where celebrity culture bleeds into every corner of our lives, the line between fame and fallout has never been thinner. It was supposed to be just another quiet Monday morning when the internet decided to erupt, this time with Colleen Hoover at the center. Her name, once synonymous with romance and resilience, suddenly became the subject of controversy as news spread about the film adaptation of her best-selling novel It Ends With Us. What should have been a celebration of creativity turned into a storm of backlash. Social media critics dissected every frame, every casting choice, every whispered rumor about how the film was being handled. The story that once captivated millions for its emotional depth now faced accusations of tone-deaf execution. Fans who once championed Hoover's work began turning against her, accusing the production of sanitizing trauma, of profiting from pain rather than portraying it. The internet, quick to judge and slow to forgive, declared its verdict before the film even premiered. As the chaos unfolded, Blake Lively found herself drawn into the center of it all. Cast as Lily Bloom, her involvement was supposed to bring grace and Hollywood power to the adaptation, but instead, it added more gasoline to the fire. Critics argued that Lively's glamorous image clashed with the gritty realism the story demanded. They pointed out that the film's wardrobe, tone, and marketing all seemed to betray the essence of the original novel. What was once a symbol of healing and survival had, according to many, become a glossy romantic fantasy. Yet amid all this noise, Colleen Hoover remained calm, her silence speaking louder than any defense. To her loyal fans, that silence represented confidence, a belief that the story would ultimately speak for itself. To her detractors, it was arrogance. But in the social media era, silence is never neutral. It's always a statement. While the internet feasted on Hoover's supposed fall from grace, another story was breaking. One that felt almost surreal. Luigi, yes, that Luigi, the iconic video game character, was suddenly trending for reasons no one expected. A viral AI edit titled Luigi in Prison swept across TikTok and YouTube, turning a beloved childhood hero into a dark parody of justice and absurdity. What began as a meme spiraled into a commentary on how culture repurposes nostalgia for clicks. The internet laughed, debated, and philosophized. Was Luigi's imprisonment just a joke, or a strange reflection of how we consume heroes only to tear them down later? The humor masked a deeper truth. Nothing and no one is too sacred for digital reinvention. Meanwhile, reality television, that chaotic mirror of society, stirred up its own scandal. Jen Tran, the latest lead of The Bachelorette, found herself in the spotlight for all the wrong reasons. A drunk-driving incident overshadowed her carefully crafted image as the empowered romantic lead. What was supposed to be a season about love and redemption turned into a headline about recklessness and hypocrisy. Critics called it a betrayal of the show's message, while fans split into factions, some calling for compassion, others for accountability. The networks, of course, tried to spin it, promising context in future episodes, but the damage was done. Once again, the public learned how thin the barrier is between the curated persona and the flawed human behind it. The modern audience, conditioned by years of scandal cycles, now expected downfall as part of the narrative. We don't just watch stories, we demand them to unravel. Whether it's a celebrity romance, a viral meme, or a reality show mishap, the appetite for chaos has become endless. Every click, every share, every angry comment feeds the machine that turns real people into entertainment. And while we were still reeling from Jen Tran's story, the news cycle turned darker, shifting from celebrity gossip to societal struggle. Across America, the looming cuts to SNAP benefits sent shockwaves through working-class families. Millions who relied on food assistance faced the grim reality of fewer resources amid rising costs. Politicians called it budget adjustment. But to those directly affected, it was a quiet devastation, another reminder that behind the glamorous headlines, ordinary people are paying the price. Online, the outrage mixed with apathy. Influencers talked about hustle culture, preaching independence, while millions silently calculated whether they could afford dinner next week. In that same week, reports of ICE raids began to resurface. In cities across the United States, fear returned to immigrant neighborhoods as families braced for midnight knocks on the door. The phrase, "no one is safe," began trending, a haunting echo of previous administrations. Children went to school terrified they might come home to empty houses. Community leaders pleaded for compassion, but compassion rarely trends. The news anchors covered it, politicians debated it, and then the world moved on, as it always does. Yet, amid these tragedies and distractions, one controversy managed to capture the strangest intersection of innocence and outrage. Miss Rachel, the YouTube educator adored by millions of toddlers, found herself unexpectedly targeted online. Her soft voice, her cheerful lessons, and her simple mission to help children learn suddenly became ammunition in a bizarre culture war. Some accused her of promoting agendas, while others rushed to defend her as a kind-hearted educator caught in the crossfire of overanalyzed morality. It was a sobering reminder that in today's climate, even a children's teacher isn't safe from the internet's hunger for conflict. As the first half of the week unfolded, it became clear that the headlines weren't separate stories. They were symptoms of the same phenomenon, a society addicted to outrage. The Colleen Hoover backlash wasn't just about a movie. It was about the public's obsession with control, the need to dictate what stories deserve empathy and which deserve shame. The Jen Tran incident wasn't just another celebrity scandal, it was about how we build people up just to watch them fall. The Luigi meme wasn't just humor, it was satire on a generation that copes with absurdity by making everything a joke. Through it all, one theme emerged: noise. Endless, overwhelming noise. Each story competed for our attention, drowning out the last before it even had time to breathe. The internet no longer processes events, it consumes them. And as every controversy becomes a punchline or a protest, we lose track of what really matters. For the creators, actors, and ordinary people swept into these narratives, the cost is more than just reputation. It's humanity. Colleen Hoover, once seen as an author who gave voice to survivors, became a symbol of artistic betrayal. Jen Tran, who entered reality TV to find love, became a headline about responsibility. Even Miss Rachel, whose only crime was caring about children's development, found herself dragged into culture wars she never asked to join. Each story is different, yet they share the same fate: misinterpretation in the hands of a digital world that thrives on outrage more than understanding. And so, as the first half of this chaotic week drew to a close, one truth lingered: the news doesn't just report our world anymore. It defines it. From the glamour of Hollywood to the hunger of the forgotten, from viral memes to moral debates, every story bleeds into the next, creating a single unbroken narrative of modern life, a spectacle of distraction where empathy struggles to survive. As the headlines grew louder, a pattern became undeniable. Chaos wasn't random anymore. It had rhythm, strategy, and a terrifying kind of beauty. Every outrage had its turn, every downfall its audience. While one celebrity apologized, another was canceled. While one scandal faded, a new one was already waiting in the wings. The machine never slept. It didn't matter if you were a best-selling author, a YouTube teacher, or a random person caught in the wrong viral clip. The internet was always hungry for a new meal. The second wave of stories that hit that week revealed just how addicted we'd become to drama as entertainment. Colleen Hoover's silence continued to echo online. Her defenders said she was above the noise, that true art didn't need to explain itself. Her critics, however, painted her silence as guilt, proof that she couldn't face the backlash she created. Interviews were dissected, fan theories multiplied, and even the film's crew began getting harassed. It no longer mattered what was true. The outrage had a life of its own. What was once a discussion about domestic violence representation had turned into a public trial of everyone involved. Meanwhile, the entertainment industry continued its descent into moral confusion. The Luigi meme, once just a harmless piece of viral humor, had grown into something bigger, a digital case study in how parody shapes reality. Fan edits and AI-generated clips reimagined the fictional plumber as a symbol of corruption, guilt, and punishment. It was ridiculous, yes, but also revealing. In an age where artificial intelligence could recreate voices, faces, and emotions, even satire began to feel real. The boundaries between fiction and truth blurred, and suddenly, we didn't just consume media. We questioned our own perception of it. And then there was the story of Jen Tran. Her DUI incident refused to fade quietly. The producers of The Bachelorette tried damage control, releasing carefully worded statements about personal growth and accountability. But viewers weren't buying it. To them, it was another example of reality TV hiding real consequences behind pretty smiles and emotional soundtracks. Commentators debated whether she deserved a second chance or whether she represented everything wrong with celebrity culture: the privilege, the image control, the detachment from responsibility. In a matter of days, the narrative shifted from entertainment to ethics. People weren't just asking what happened, they were asking what it said about us. Because that's what each of these stories became: a mirror. A reflection of how deeply we project our own morality, pain, and insecurities onto the lives of others. When Colleen Hoover stumbled, it wasn't just about art, it was about who gets to define victimhood. When Jen Tran failed, it wasn't just a DUI, it was about what we expect from the people we idealize. And when Luigi became a joke about incarceration, it wasn't about nostalgia, it was about our tendency to turn everything serious into content. The irony, of course, was that while we obsessed over the lives of others, the real world outside our screens continued to fracture. Across America, the cuts to SNAP benefits left families quietly desperate. Food pantries overflowed with people who had never imagined they'd need them. Mothers skipped meals to feed their children. Workers took second jobs that barely covered the rent. And in the chaos of rising bills, the stories of survival went untold. The same internet that amplified celebrity gossip could barely spare a fraction of its energy for the millions fighting hunger. Empathy had become a luxury, something to perform, not practice. At the same time, ICE operations resumed in full force. The news barely covered it, but the fear was palpable in immigrant communities. Videos emerged of raids at dawn, of families torn apart in silence. And for every one of those videos, there were hundreds of others. Influencers arguing over trivialities, celebrities issuing apologies, the endless churn of distraction. We lived in a time where tragedy competed with entertainment for attention, and entertainment always won. Then came the Miss Rachel controversy, perhaps the most surreal of them all. A children's educator, a woman who devoted her life to helping toddlers learn words, emotions, and empathy, suddenly became the subject of online warfare. People accused her of having political motives, of being part of some imagined cultural agenda. It was absurd, and yet it was exactly what the internet demanded: conflict where there was none, villains where there were only teachers. Miss Rachel's tearful response, posted late one night, revealed the exhaustion of someone who simply couldn't understand how kindness had become controversial. "I just want to help kids learn," she said softly, her eyes red from crying. That clip was viewed tens of millions of times, not because people wanted to learn, but because they wanted to feel something. And that was the unspoken truth behind every headline. We've mistaken emotional reaction for understanding. We scroll not to learn, but to feel outrage, pity, superiority, connection, whatever keeps us from feeling numb. The media doesn't just tell us stories anymore. It gives us a curated menu of emotions. You can be angry about Colleen Hoover in the morning, laugh about Luigi in the afternoon, and cry over Miss Rachel by evening, all without ever looking away from your screen. It's not just the news. It's emotional programming. In their serious, yet understated delivery, captured this contradiction perfectly. They didn't shout. They didn't mock. They observed, and in that observation was something rare: perspective. Because underneath the spectacle, there's still truth. Beneath every scandal, there's a human being. Behind every meme, a reflection of our fears. Behind every viral controversy, a reminder of how much control we've surrendered to the chaos. As the week wore on, discussions about accountability resurfaced. What does it mean to forgive in a culture that profits from outrage? Colleen Hoover's defenders argued that art should be judged by intent, not reaction. Gen Trans supporters called for compassion, reminding people that one mistake shouldn't define a life. Even Miss Rachel's story became a plea for perspective, a chance to ask why we destroy the very people who try to make the world better. Yet, each call for empathy was drowned by the next trending topic. Forgiveness doesn't go viral. The second half of that week ended with a kind of collective fatigue. People were tired of outrage, tired of pretending they cared about every headline, tired of feeling morally obligated to have an opinion. The digital noise had become so constant that silence began to feel like rebellion. Some users deleted their apps, others just stopped commenting. But most stayed, scrolling endlessly, knowing they couldn't look away. Because that's the paradox. The very system that exhausts us is also the one we can't live without. Behind the scenes, producers, editors, and journalists understood this better than anyone. They knew that the truth alone doesn't hold attention, emotion does. And so, headlines became sharper, videos faster, reactions more extreme. Every platform turned into a stage where people performed their identities for approval. The news wasn't about information anymore, it was about engagement. And engagement, more often than not, was built on outrage. By the time the week drew to a close, Rush Hour ended its episode not with laughter, but reflection. The host's voice softened, cutting through the static like a sigh. "We live," he said, "in an age where silence is suspicious, kindness is questioned, and truth depends on who tells it." It wasn't just commentary. It was a eulogy for something we'd lost. Because beneath the headlines about celebrities, scandals, and streaming wars lies the simplest human truth. We are desperate to connect. Outrage is just connection in disguise, a way to feel seen, even through anger. But somewhere along the way, we replaced empathy with entertainment. We forgot that the stories we consume are about real people, not characters written for our amusement. And so, as the credits rolled and the lights dimmed, the episode left its viewers with one lingering thought. What if the real crisis isn't in our headlines, but in ourselves? What if the chaos we see is just a reflection of our own need to belong, to matter, to feel something real in a world of performance? The camera faded to black, the screen quiet for the first time in an hour. And in that silence, there was truth, uncomfortable, undeniable truth. Because beyond the clickbait, the memes, and the viral moments, the world is still full of people just trying to live, to love, to survive. But until we learn to look past the noise, to listen instead of react, to understand instead of accuse, the cycle will continue. Tomorrow there will be another headline, another scandal, another moment to divide or distract us. The question isn't whether it will happen, it's whether we'll keep letting it define us. And that's the real rush hour, not the traffic outside, but the collision of truth, perception, and noise inside us all. Thanks for watching. Subscribe my channel Coravanta for more updates.